Hello, my name is James Dearsley on behalf of WhatHouse, and we're here to talk about What's Up Here, which is the WhatHouse show, which is happening in under a couple of weeks now, down at the Hilton Metropole, 27th and 28th of September. Now, at the show, there's an awful lot of exhibitors, so there's going to be people talking about overseas property, UK domestic property, land and new homes, but really there's a massive portion of the market which is the first-time buyers. And the WhatHouse show's got an awful lot of seminar speakers on there. But I'm really pleased to be joined by one of our speakers, which is Lynda Clark of the First Time Buyer magazine. So, firstly, hi Lynda, and can you tell us a little bit about the First Time Buyer magazine and what it's all about?
Oh, hello, James. Yes, First Time Buyer magazine is basically a magazine for obviously first-time buyers, and it's a sort of one-stop shop, really, to find out everything you need to know about getting on the property ladder. So we just cover every aspect of how to buy a home from basically the start to the end. So we've got things about shared ownership, we've got things about the Help to Buy scheme, about buying on the open market, we have legal things, but we do try very much to make it as easy to understand as possible. We don't want to have a load of sort of legal or conveyancing jargon or things that people just don't understand. So we just assume that we are trying to explain it in a very simple, very easy to understand way. And apart from that, we also have, celebrity interviews with people that are on property shows on television. We have a little bit of a recipe and interiors just to brighten things up, because when you're reading about mortgages and finance, it does get a bit heavy sometimes.
It does, doesn't it? It's quite a scary proposition for anybody buying their first time property. I mean, is there a classic first-time buyer? I mean, I know that the media love to generalise that, they're in their mid-30s, and you've got the people who are supported by mum and dad and the people that are not. I mean, in your experience, what is the classic first-time buyer?
Well, it's really hard to say, because obviously the classic first-time buyer could be any age. Obviously, it depends very much on your financial circumstances, whether or not you can save for a deposit, which we try to advise people how to do that and how to save money. So you've got everything from the sort of, I've got case studies where there's a 20-year-old been lucky enough to be able to buy a home, right through to recently a 60-year-old lady, retired, had never bought her own home and said, actually, I want to do it. So it's really the whole span. There isn't really a typical first-time buyer, but the majority of people, I think, are in their sort of late 20s, early 30s that do buy the magazine, or that we obviously have contact with, who are young professionals or people that really want to branch away from renting, which is obviously costing them a fortune, and they're trying really hard to get on the ladder.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? That we as a media, we do love to generalise, because it puts facts and figures and numbers in people's heads, and I often sometimes think it scaremongers some people sometimes, because they think, well, actually, hang on a second, do I have a right to buy when I'm 20? And you've got the others at the other end of the spectrum saying, I'm 40 and I don't yet own my own home. I'm still renting. And it's often I think it's a very difficult thing. But you mentioned earlier on about the whole manner of things that people are expected to understand. So you got the mortgages, the conveyancing, and all this sort of stuff. And you at First Time Buyer magazine tries to simplify it. I mean, I understand it from one of the stories I read on your website about that house buying is one of the most stressful situations to ever find yourself in, ahead of having your first child, ahead of moving jobs. How can we make it easier for first-time buyers?
Well, obviously it is quite stressful, because as a first-time buyer, you've never done it before. Even a second-time buyer or a mover finds it stressful, because a lot of it is out of your hands. The easy part is choosing the property, because basically you know what you like and what you don't like. So that's kind of the nice bit. Then it starts to escalate, and you have to get conveyancer, which is a legal person involved. You have to go to the bank or the building society and get the money. So the best advice I can give anybody is to get as much information before you start. Be prepared, and basically, if you've got some knowledge, even if it's tiny, you will start to pick up and learn quite quickly. So ask lots of questions. That is the biggest thing I would recommend anybody. So even when you go and visit a house, if it's a new build development, then ask the people at the sales office. Ask millions of questions. If it's an estate agent, don't be fobbed off. Don't let them just pull the wool over your eyes and say this, and this. Keep asking, keep asking. If you've got parents or a friend who's bought before, pick their brains. Then when you go to the legal side of things, you really, really need to my biggest piece of advice actually is just don't go down the high street and pick any old solicitors that you see. Do a bit of research. Some of them do specialise in first-time buyers and do some really, really good packages, and they will handhold you the whole way through. So if you have a blip and you don't understand something, they will really explain it in simple language, not in legal jargon. So it's really a question of finding out everything you need to know. Now, we actually have produced a book called You Can Buy Your First Home, which tells you everything you need to know. And there's loads of tick boxes and checklists so that when you go to visit a development or go to visit a house that you're interested in or an apartment, there's all the questions you need to know. And you can just literally hold it up and say, right, I need to know X, Y, Z. And if they don't answer, keep pushing. Don't be fobbed off. So
yeah, I think that's unbelievably important information. I mean, I remember distinctly, not even though, I mean, I was an estate agent at the time, but I was in lettings. But the amount of information that you can glean from estate agents and developers and everything, it's vast.
It is.
Unless you're asking those questions, you will never get them. And it's difficult as a first-time buyer just to have that scale of information coming in. But
absolutely.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more about asking the questions. And funnily enough, that's part of the reason why we're doing this series of interviews for the WhatHouse show, which is we want people to come to the show and not be afraid to go and talk to, for example, Red Row Homes or First Time Buyer magazine or any of the estate agents there.
Yes.
And by personalising them, which is what we're doing here, people realise that they're there to offer the advice. They want to answer your questions. They want to sit down with you, over a coffee and just say, right, come on, what do you need to ask? How can we help you? Rather than being sold to, it's all about information giving now. So I think it's such a valuable advice. Thank you ever so much.
The advice I would say, just very quickly, is if you're doing house hunting or you're visiting your bank or legal people, if you can, try and take somebody with you. If you're buying on your own, then take a friend or your mum or your dad or even your auntie, whoever it might be. If you're buying as a couple, always try to go together because two sets of ears is better. You always, somebody hears something, the other person hears it slightly differently, and when you come out, you can talk about it and get the full picture. So that is a good piece of advice, to try and take somebody with you. It's a really, really important thing that you actually have somebody else's opinion of what that person has said and how they've said it and what the gist of it is.
Absolutely, I couldn't agree more. And partly, this is why you're going to be a seminar speaker at the WhatHouse show, because I mean, all that information that's going to help these first-time buyers is invaluable, and ultimately that's why you're there. So I'm really pleased to welcome you. And for anybody prior to the show and after, if you're watching this interview, do check out. I believe it's the firsttimebuyerinline.com. And I think you have your magazine there for reading around, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely. Yes, we have back issues you can read. So obviously, if you want to click on, you can just read it at your leisure on the train or on the bus or at home, whenever you like. Or obviously, if you want to go and buy the magazine, you can, or you can subscribe. And really, our whole aim is just to really try and help everybody we possibly can. So you will get lots of information, and I'm always happy for anybody to give me a ring or an email, and hopefully I'll be able to answer their questions or point them in the right direction anyway.
Good stuff. All right, well, Lynda, I really appreciate your time. Thank you ever so much for that. And just as a final reminder for everybody else out there, it's the WhatHouse show, 27th and 28th of September at the Brighton Hilton Metropole, and we look forward to welcoming you all there and to see lovely speakers like Lynda. So thank you, Lynda. I appreciate your time.
Many thanks, James. I look forward to it. Thank you.
It'll be good fun. Thanks so much.